I'm in the British Museum, after hours when all the visitors have gone, and over here is the Rosetta Stone. It was the key to understanding Egyptian hieroglyphics, and it is one of the most precious and valuable treasures of the British Museum.
For more than 2 centuries, the Rosetta Stone has been celebrated as the artifact that unlocked the language of ancient Egypt. Historians believed its secrets had already been fully deciphered, but when advanced artificial intelligence examined its surface, using technology capable of detecting details invisible to the human eye, it uncovered something no one expected. What emerged wasn't just another translation or a small historical correction. Instead, the AI revealed hidden patterns that have sparked new debates among researchers and raised intriguing questions about everything we thought we knew. If you enjoy uncovering hidden history, ancient mysteries, and groundbreaking discoveries, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because what comes next may completely change the way you see the Rosetta Stone. Now let's dive into its incredible mystery. The Rosetta Stone is one of the most famous archaeological discoveries ever made, yet its own story is full of surprising twists. After it was discovered near the Egyptian town of Rosetta and later transferred to British control in 1801, it was described simply as a dark stone engraved with 3 different inscriptions. That seemingly ordinary description shaped how people viewed the artifact for generations. When the stone arrived in London, museum workers wanted its ancient writing to be easier to read. They rubbed white chalk into the carved letters and later coated the surface with a protective layer of carnauba wax to shield it from constant handling. Over time, these treatments darkened the stone so dramatically that many believed it was carved from black basalt. That misconception remained accepted for nearly 200 years. In 1999, conservators carefully removed the wax and other old coatings. For the first time since its discovery, the Rosetta Stone's true appearance was revealed. Instead of deep black, it showed a dark grey surface with sparkling crystal minerals and a distinctive pink vein crossing its upper left corner. This discovery allowed geologists to study the stone more accurately. By comparing it with rock samples from Egypt, they concluded that it was most likely carved from granodiorite quarried near Gebel Tingar, close to Elephantine in the Aswan region. The unique pink mineral vein matched stone from that location almost perfectly, helping confirm its origin. The Rosetta Stone itself is an enormous monument. It stands around 3 feet 8 inches tall, measures about 2 feet 5 inches wide, is just over 11 inches thick, and weighs approximately 760 kilograms, or nearly 1,680 pounds. Its sheer size makes it remarkable, especially considering the challenge of transporting it from Egypt to Britain in the early 19th century. What truly makes the Rosetta Stone extraordinary, however, is not its size, but the 3 different writing systems carved into its polished front surface. The upper section is written in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs using Middle Egyptian, a formal language already considered ancient when the inscription was created. Beneath that is the Demotic script, the everyday written language used throughout Ptolemaic Egypt. The lowest section is written in ancient Greek, which served as the official administrative language under the Ptolemaic rulers. Together, these 3 scripts eventually gave scholars the key to understanding hieroglyphs and opened an entirely new chapter in the study of ancient Egypt. The front of the stone was carefully polished before the inscriptions were engraved, while the back remained rough because it was never intended to be seen once the monument was erected. The artifact displayed today is only part of a much larger original stele. Despite repeated searches around Rosetta, the missing sections have never been recovered. As a result, none of the 3 inscriptions survive in their complete form. The hieroglyphic section suffered the greatest damage, with only the final 14 lines remaining, many of them broken on both sides. The Demotic text is better preserved, retaining 32 lines with only limited damage near the beginning. The Greek inscription survives most completely, extending across 54 lines and providing historians with the crucial clues that eventually unlocked the meaning of the other 2 scripts. For generations, experts believed the Rosetta Stone had revealed all of its secrets, but according to recent AI analysis, the story may not be over yet. Although the lower section of the Greek inscription is damaged, the first 27 lines remain almost perfectly preserved. From that point onward, the text becomes increasingly fragmented because the stone broke away diagonally along its right side. By comparing the Rosetta Stone with other royal stelae from the same era, historians have reconstructed what the monument originally looked like. One of the closest comparisons is the Decree of Canopus, created in 238 BC during the reign of Ptolemy III. That monument stood more than 7 feet tall and featured dozens of lines of hieroglyphic, Demotic, and Greek text. Because the inscriptions are so similar, researchers believe the Rosetta Stone originally included another 14 or 15 lines of hieroglyphs above the surviving section, making it roughly 1 foot taller than it is today. The missing upper portion likely contained more than just text. Similar Egyptian stelae usually featured a carved scene showing the king standing before the gods, symbolizing divine approval and royal authority. Above this scene was often a winged sun disk, a powerful emblem of protection in ancient Egyptian culture. Although these carvings no longer survive on the Rosetta Stone, scholars are confident they were once part of the original monument. Taken as a whole, the Rosetta Stone is far more than a carved block of rock. It was carefully designed as an official royal monument, intended to communicate the same message in multiple languages so that people throughout Egypt could understand it. But what exactly does the inscription say? The text records a royal decree issued after the coronation of King Ptolemy V. Rather than being written directly by the young king, it was approved by an assembly of Egyptian priests gathered in the ancient city of Memphis. Their decree officially recognized Ptolemy V as a divine ruler and ordered that he be honored in temples across Egypt. The inscription carefully records the date, using both the Macedonian and Egyptian calendars, placing the decree in 196 BC, during the 9th year of Ptolemy's reign. It even lists the names of high-ranking priests serving at the time, including officials responsible for ceremonies connected to Alexander the Great and members of the Ptolemaic royal family. Interestingly, the inscription includes another important date, the anniversary of Ptolemy's coronation. However, the Greek, hieroglyphic, and Demotic versions do not perfectly agree, leaving historians uncertain about why the dates differ. Despite these small inconsistencies, the purpose of the decree is clear. It was created during one of the most unstable periods in Egyptian history. Ptolemy V became king, while still a child, after both of his parents died amid political intrigue and palace conspiracies. Powerful advisors ruled in his name, but their authority quickly collapsed as rebellions erupted throughout the kingdom. At the same time, Egypt faced growing threats from outside its borders. Antiochus III of the Seleucid Empire and Philip V of Macedon launched campaigns that stripped Egypt of several important territories, including Coele-Syria and Judea. Meanwhile, rebellion continued to spread within southern Egypt, placing enormous pressure on the young king's government. Against this backdrop of political chaos, the Rosetta Stone served as far more than a ceremonial monument. It was a public declaration of royal authority, designed to strengthen loyalty to Ptolemy V and restore confidence in a kingdom struggling to survive. The decree also praises the young king for restoring order during one of Egypt's most difficult periods. It describes how Ptolemy V donated silver, grain, and valuable gifts to the temples while supporting the people during hard times. One event received special attention: the unusually high flooding of the Nile during the 8th year of his reign. According to the inscription, measures were taken to control the floodwaters, helping farmers protect their land and harvests. In return, Egypt's priests pledged their loyalty. They declared that Ptolemy V should be honored alongside the gods, and they ordered that annual celebrations be held to commemorate both his birthday and his coronation. The decree also commanded that its message be engraved in 3 different scripts: hieroglyphs for sacred use, Demotic for everyday Egyptian administration, and Greek for the ruling government. This ensured that people from every level of society could read and understand the king's proclamation. The ceremony took place in Memphis, Egypt's ancient religious capital, rather than Alexandria, the political center of the Ptolemaic kingdom. By gaining the support of Memphis's powerful priesthood, the young king hoped to strengthen his authority over a nation divided by rebellion and political unrest. Although the Ptolemaic rulers were of Greek origin, the use of Egyptian writing systems demonstrated respect for local traditions and helped reinforce the bond between the monarchy and the priesthood. In many ways, the Rosetta Stone was far more than an inscribed monument. It served as a political statement, a religious agreement, and a symbol of stability during one of the most turbulent periods in Egypt's history. Even today, translating the decree remains a challenge. As scholars continue improving their understanding of ancient Egyptian writing, new translations continue to refine the meaning of the text. While early versions by researchers such as E. A. Wallace Budge and Edwin R. Bevan were groundbreaking for their time, modern studies provide a far more accurate interpretation of the inscription. How the Rosetta Stone reached Britain. The Rosetta Stone's journey into British hands began during Napoleon Bonaparte's Egyptian campaign in 1798. The French invasion included not only soldiers, but also more than 150 scientists, engineers, artists, and scholars whose mission was to study Egypt's history, monuments, and culture alongside the military expedition. Then, in July 1799, an extraordinary discovery was made. While reinforcing Fort Julien near the town of Rosetta, modern-day Rashid, French soldiers uncovered a large stone slab hidden within the walls of the old fort. Lieutenant Pierre-François Bouchard immediately recognized that the inscriptions carved across its surface could be historically significant. The discovery was quickly reported to French Commander General Jacques-François Menot, who ordered the stone to be sent to Cairo for closer examination. At Cairo's newly established Institut d'Égypte, scholars carefully inspected the monument. One of them, Michel-Ange Lancret, observed that the slab contained 3 different writing systems. He proposed that each inscription was a version of the same royal decree, a breakthrough idea that would eventually lead to the decipherment of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Recognizing its enormous historical value, Bouchard arranged for the Rosetta Stone to be transported safely to Cairo, where detailed studies of the mysterious inscriptions could finally begin. News of the Rosetta Stone's discovery quickly spread across Europe. In September 1799, the official newspaper of the French expedition published the first report, suggesting that the mysterious inscription might one day unlock the long-lost language of the ancient Egyptians. Soon after, members of Napoleon's scientific team began creating accurate copies of the text. Jean-Joseph Marcel, a linguist and printer, correctly identified the middle inscription as Demotic Egyptian, not Syriac, as some had previously assumed. At the same time, inventor Nicolas Jacques Conté developed an innovative method of using the stone itself to produce printed copies, while Antoine Galland created additional reproductions using a different technique. These copies were sent to Paris, allowing European scholars to study the inscription without traveling to Egypt. Everything changed in 1801. After Napoleon left Egypt, French forces continued fighting the British and Ottoman armies. In March 1801, British troops landed at Abu Qir Bay, forcing the French into a series of defeats before retreating to Alexandria. Along with their soldiers, they carried valuable scientific collections, including the Rosetta Stone. When the French finally surrendered in August 1801, a fierce dispute broke out over who owned the discoveries. General Jacques-François Menou insisted that the artifacts belonged to France's Scientific Institute and refused to hand them over. British commander General John Hely Hutchinson disagreed, making it clear that the siege would not end until the collections were surrendered. British scholars Edward Daniel Clarke and William Richard Hamilton inspected the French collections and reported that many important objects had been concealed. Some French scholars even threatened to destroy the artifacts rather than allow them to fall into British hands, comparing the loss to the destruction of the ancient library of Alexandria. After the capitulation of Alexandria, the Rosetta Stone was officially transferred to Britain, although the exact details remain debated. It was shipped to England aboard HMS Egyptienne, arrived in Portsmouth in 1802, and was later placed in the British Museum by order of King George III. What began as a chance discovery inside an Egyptian fort soon became one of history's greatest archaeological finds. The Rosetta Stone gave scholars the key to unlocking the long-lost language of ancient Egypt. For centuries, hieroglyphs had remained an unsolved mystery. After the fall of the Roman Empire, the knowledge of reading them gradually disappeared, and by the 4th century AD, almost no one could understand the ancient script. Many scholars tried to decipher it over the centuries, but all failed. Everything changed with the discovery of the Rosetta Stone in 1799. Because it carried the same decree in Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphs, researchers finally had a way to compare the unknown language with one they could already read. Even then, the breakthrough took years. Scholars including Stephen Weston, Gabriel de la Porte Dutay, Hubert Pascal Améon, Richard Porson, and Christian Gottlob Hayne gradually improved the translations, laying the groundwork for the complete decipherment of ancient Egyptian. The Rosetta Stone wasn't just an archaeological treasure. It became the key that brought the forgotten language of the pharaohs back to life. Attention soon shifted to the mysterious middle inscription, the Demotic script. At the time, very little was known about this form of writing. Swedish diplomat Johann David Åkerblad had already begun studying similar texts from Egypt and recognized links with the Coptic language. His research attracted the attention of renowned French Orientalist Antoine-Isaac Silvestre de Sacy, who realized that the Rosetta Stone's middle inscription was written in the same script. For the first time, scholars believed they were standing on the edge of one of history's greatest breakthroughs, the moment when the silent language of the pharaohs might finally speak again. Scholars Antoine-Isaac Silvestre de Sacy and Johann David Åkerblad began comparing the Demotic script with the Greek inscription, searching for matching royal names. They successfully identified names like Ptolemy, Alexander, and Alexandria, proving that parts of the script were phonetic. Although they couldn't fully decipher it, their work laid the foundation for future discoveries. The real breakthrough came in the early 1800s. Building on earlier ideas, Thomas Young recognized that the oval cartouches in hieroglyphs contained royal names and discovered important links between hieroglyphic and demotic writing. His research showed that demotic combined phonetic symbols with traditional Egyptian signs. Then, in 1822, French scholar Jean-François Champollion achieved the breakthrough that changed history. By comparing the names Ptolemy and Cleopatra on different monuments, he identified the sounds of several hieroglyphic symbols and proved that hieroglyphs could represent spoken language, not just symbolic ideas. Soon afterward, Champollion successfully read the names of ancient pharaohs such as Ramesses and Thutmose, confirming that his method worked. This opened the door to translating countless Egyptian inscriptions and allowed historians to understand the language, history, and culture of ancient Egypt for the first time in nearly 1,500 years. The Rosetta Stone had finally fulfilled its purpose. It unlocked one of history's greatest mysteries and gave the lost voice of ancient Egypt back to the world. After Jean-François Champollion's breakthrough, scholars continued refining the Rosetta Stone's translation. In 1824, Antoine-Jean Letron began preparing a more accurate Greek translation, while Champollion compared all three inscriptions. Although Champollion died in 1832 before completing the work, his notes were later recovered, allowing Letron to publish a finished translation in 1841. Over the following decades, Egyptologists produced even more accurate translations of the hieroglyphic, demotic, and Greek texts. However, historians continued debating which version of the decree had been written first. Some believed the Greek text was the original, while others argued the hieroglyphic version held the greatest authority. Many now believe all three were created together for different audiences. One thing became clear: the Rosetta Stone was never a simple word-for-word translation. Each inscription reflected its own language and style, making the process of deciphering ancient Egyptian far more complex than anyone expected. Even so, the Rosetta Stone became the key that unlocked a lost civilization, allowing historians to read the language of the pharaohs once again after nearly 1,500 years. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more fascinating mysteries from ancient history. And be sure to watch the next video on your screen. You won't want to miss it.